Driving along this stretch of road might seem like what it actually is, a drive through the park. But what a lot of people don't know is that driving on this road, you will not only be possessed by its natural beauty, rolling blue and green hills and beautiful flowers, but you can also be possessed by something dark and sinister. Something so dark it might cause you to kill or be killed. The road I'm talking about is the Blue Ridge Parkway. Welcome to This Happened Here. I'm your host, LT Bartek. Now for a little history for those of us who don't know. The Great Smokies and the Shenandoah were granted authorization during the 1920s and opened in the 1930s to make national parks more reachable for the eastern USA population. The construction on the Blue Ridge Parkway to connect the parks started in 1935 and was completely finished in 1987, including the last section around Grandfather Mountain, North Carolina. The parkway took 52 years to complete, and in 2023 it's about 88 years old. The parkway was built during the Great Depression of the 1930s because President Franklin D. Roosevelt instituted a New Deal program to stimulate the economy and put people to work. A New York landscape architect by the name of Stanley Abbott was hired to oversee the project. The parkway snakes around southward to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park on the North Carolina-Tennessee border. To drive from mile marker 0 to 469, if you don't stop at every pull-offs to get drawn in by these overlooks, it will take you 12 to 13 hours. The Blue Ridge Parkway is 469 miles of 45 miles per hour winding roads through Virginia and North Carolina. It connects Shenandoah's National Park near Waynesboro, Virginia, that's Milepost 0, with the Great Smoky Mountain National Park near Cherokee, North Carolina, at Milepost 469. The parkway covers 29 counties. One of the most wonderful things is that you can travel the whole parkway through 2 different states and not ever stop at a red light or stop sign. The highest elevation along the parkway road is 6,053 feet at Richland Balsam, Milepost 431, in North Carolina, which you will see when we get there. Along with the fascinating views are the tunnels on this parkway. 25 to be exact are in North Carolina, and there is one in Virginia. If you'd like to see and enjoy more of the parkway than just zipping through or stopping at some of these pull-offs and overlooks, there are so many hiking trails that you can take that will lead you to some of the most beautiful places. But as usual, do make all the right preparations, have enough food, the right type of clothing, including footwear, and let others know where you will be hiking before you actually start hiking. To get the most of these trails, they recommend a 7-day road trip itinerary. Now, since 1946, the Blue Ridge Parkway has been the most visited site in the entire national park system. In recent years, more than 18 million visitors have traveled to parts of the parkway. There are entrances and exits at all major federal and state highways, with Asheville and Boone, North Carolina, and Roanoke, Virginia being the largest cities along the way. And now for some of the stories found while researching the Blue Ridge Parkway. These stories were taken from the National Park Service Bulletin, news articles, and the website npshistory.com. We ended up driving just a little less than half of the Blue Ridge Parkway and spent hours there. And boys and girls, there is so much to see and it is so beautiful. Please visit soon, but be very careful. Some awful things have happened there, and I will share some of them with you. As we drive along here, we will be stopping at a couple of the spots where some of these incidents have occurred. Please note that these are scary stories, at least for me, so be warned. But before we get into all that, are you subscribed? If not, why not? On this channel, we take you with us to places that have the most interesting stories. We do this not only to share some of the things that have happened here, but also to show you this beautiful country of ours. We have also been outside of the country, Jamaica to be exact, and I've brought you some interesting stories from there as well. Check that out. So if a channel like this is the sort of thing you find interesting, go ahead and click that subscribe button now and select the all in the drop down menu so that you will be notified every time we upload one of our weekly videos. And if you like what you see, click the like button to let me know. You know I crave your approval. And then share these videos with people who you think will like them as well. At this location, there was an attempt of a homicide.
It's a little further, babe. I finally got the GPS.
Scratch that. I was just told it's a little further up the road. From 2018 to 2022, there have been 78 deaths on the Blue Ridge Parkway. 17 in 2018, 17 in 2019, 15 in 2020, 16 in 2021, and 13 in 2022. The numbers are still being tabulated for 2023. Of the 15 deaths in 2020, one of them included an 11-year-old child riding on the back of his father's bike. He died after he was flung from the back of the bike. This happened when a car stopped suddenly in front of them. The father tried to swerve but collided with an oncoming truck, killing the child on the spot. In the spring and summer months, the road is at its busiest, and in the fall, when a lot of people come out to look at the dying leaves, autumn leaves, the road will often be wet and slippery. Those are the times most of these accidents happen. So please be careful in every season when traveling on the parkway. Another statistic for the Blue Ridge Park is a suicide. In 2018 alone, there were 10 suicides. By June of 2019, there are already 3. Rangers have asked to be notified whenever anyone see a person looking as if they're about to take their lives. In other words, if you see something, say something. Now let's get into these stories. At Milepost 460, in the early hours of July 30th, 2006, Rangers from Buncombe County received a report of an incident involving property damage near Milepost 460. Upon reaching the location, the responding ranger observed an individual strolling along the roadside. After talking with the man, it became apparent that the man was holding a loaded firearm. To the ranger's relief, the man allowed the ranger to detain him. Buncombe later found that the man was in the country illegally and was in possession of a stolen firearm. He then heard rustling in the woods and looked over to see a woman emerging from the trees. According to her account, they started arguing about the vehicle, and the apprehended man, in the course of the altercation, pulled out a gun and pointed it at her. He started threatening her, but somehow in the fight, the car stopped, and she quickly flung open the door and ran off into the woods. The man fired 3 shots in her direction, but they all missed. She was already in the woods and hid there until the ranger arrived. At the site of the accident, the ranger identified the gunshot hole in the roof of the vehicle. At the time of the incident in 2006, the man remained confined in a detention facility awaiting trial. The U.S. Authority Office was evaluating potential charges while immigration authorities were appraised of the situation. In July of 2019, there was also a brutal killing of a female at a location just off the Blue Ridge Parkway. This is how the story played itself out for me. 20-year-old Derek Sean Pendergraft looked at his watch and saw that in a few minutes he would be getting off work. It was Tuesday, and he couldn't wait to get outside. He headed for his locker and gathered his things so that he could be out the door by 4 p.m. He heard a locker door close on the other side of him. That side was reserved for the female workers of the Pisgah Inn where he worked. He loved working here because it was a very popular destination right off the Blue Ridge Parkway, and he enjoyed meeting new people and loved the mountain life. He completed putting his things together and walked towards the exit. Sarah Ellis almost bumped into him as she struggled to walk while shoving items into her bag. They both stopped and laughed at each other. Sarah was a beautiful 29-year-old lady, and though she was 9 years his senior, he was still attracted to her. He summoned up the courage to ask her to take a short hike with him, and to his surprise, she said yes. They loaded their personal belongings into their respective rooms reserved for employees and headed for the trailhead. They decided to hike the one nearest to the employee housing. He asked her about her reason for leaving her home in Seminole, Florida, and he found that she was very easy to talk with. They were both seasonal workers and didn't mind the work at the inn. The area was beautiful and they both loved hiking the trails. But just as dusk was approaching, Derek ran back to the inn, almost completely out of breath, and announced to the manager that Sarah was missing. They had him sit and he was asked to explain what happened. He told the security that he and Sarah had taken the trail, but the rain started to fall and she decided to turn around and head back to the inn. But he wanted to hike some more and carried on. He told them that he hiked for about an hour, then turned around. He said that just as he reached the section where he had left Sarah, he saw, sitting on the ground, was Sarah's hat and umbrella. That looked strange to him, and he immediately thought of reporting her missing. Rangers and first responders were immediately called, and a search was on the way. Though the entrance to where her body was almost completely overgrown, they found Sarah's half-nude body laying a few feet away from the trail outside the inn's property, just about a half-mile down a narrow, overgrown trail near the path connecting the inn and workers' dorms. Her neck was badly bruised and discolored with marks consistent with strangulation. The manager of the hotel called the police and Derek was read his rights, but when he was questioned again by Agent W. Gang of the FBI, he told him that while he and Sarah were on the walk, he blacked out, and when he came to, he felt like it had not been a single blink of his time. He said when he came to, he found himself looking into the face of Sarah, and she was dead. On Thursday, February 27, 2020, Derek Sean Pendergraft was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Sarah Ellis. In this next story, the tourist name was withheld by the reporters, so I will call him John. John had been driving all day on the Blue Ridge Parkway. It was getting dark, just turning 7 p.m. on February 24th, 2021. But John needed to stop one last time to take a break before carrying on. He fussed at himself for not stopping at the French Broad Overlook and wasn't too sure how far the next overlook was. He only knew it was the Walnut Cove Overlook. He pulled off the road at a safe location, dropped his backrest and breathed a sigh of relief as he let the cool of the evening air flow into his car. No sooner had he started to relax than he heard the sound of footsteps approaching. He turned his head, expecting the passerby to carry on, but the man standing outside his vehicle had no desire to go anywhere. He wanted to be right where he stood, outside of John's car. In an instant, John jerked himself into a fully seated position and looked down the barrel of the gun the man had pointed at him. He heard the almost muffled demand for his wallet, cell phone, and car keys. The man had on a mask covering half of his face. John immediately, almost mechanically, handed over the items, hoping all the while that this man would not kill him. It was only after he saw the assailant's taillights, similar to a Mitsubishi Lancer, fading in the distance, that he realized he was holding his breath. He started to convulse and stepped out of his vehicle. He had no way of driving his car because the gunman had taken his keys, and not wanting to be around if the gunman decided to come back, John walked over to the edge of the trees and hid there, hoping for someone genuine to save him. But the gunman didn't return. He was too busy spending John's money. Surveillance cameras spotted him at a gas station in Arden, using John's car to purchase gas. Then he stopped at a home improvement store in Hendersonville, where he stopped to purchase some items there as well. And of course, he had to make a stop in Asheville to get groceries because why not? Investigators were not able to get this criminal's identity and were asking the public to help identify him because at all the locations he was still wearing the mask. It is unclear if they ever caught this criminal, so if anyone knows how this story ended, please tell me about it in the comments. This story happened at our last stop, just at the end of the parkway. On September 9th, 2016, U.S. Park Rangers were en route to a location where they saw a vehicle parked at the side of the road. They were not sure what to make of this because this vehicle was sitting on the side of the road in an area where there were no trails, picnic facilities, or campsites. At first, they thought the vehicle had mechanical issues and pulled over, driving slowly to park behind the vehicle, but there was something much worse taking place. Walking down the steep embankment away from the vehicle was a man, pulling behind him a small child. The Rangers grew suspicious and went to investigate. Suddenly, the man looked up and saw the Rangers approaching. The knife came up like a flash and then disappeared deep inside the child's heart. The Rangers rushed over to save the child, but it was too late. They took the man into custody and attempted to provide medical aid to the young victim. The man was later identified as 38-year-old Seth Willis Pickering, and the now deceased child was his 6-year-old daughter, Leela. Pickering pleaded guilty to murdering his daughter, and he received a life sentence without parole in February 2018. All federal sentences are served without a possibility of parole. Leela's mother, grandmother, and aunt were all present to see him get what he deserved. There is no excuse for what happened, the judge stated during the sentencing hearing. When asked why he had killed his daughter, his response was he killed her to punish social services and his wife for taking her away from him. Following the sentencing hearing, Pickering was transferred to the custody of the Federal Bureau of Prisons. The case was investigated by a special agent of the National Park Service Investigative Service Branch, ISB, U.S. Park Rangers of the Blue Ridge Parkway, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, and the Buncombe County Sheriff's Office. Prosecution was handled by the U.S. Attorney by the Western District of North Carolina. Okay, seems I'm going to have to split this into 2 parts. So next week I will conclude with the rest of the things that have happened on the Blue Ridge Parkway. accidents and suicides. So come back next week for that. And for now, I will just wish you a good day. Remember to love yourself and others. Subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. Yeah, I do crave that. So go ahead and also leave me a comment. Love you. Bye.